Kirby Smart, the head coach of the Georgia football team, who was at the podium first today. Well, at the podium today. So, a lot going on with Georgia right now. Back-to-back national champions.
Yep.
Trying for a three-peat. Something that hasn't been done since the 1930s, college football.
Since my Minnesota Gophers did it last.
I knew you'd jump on their bandwagon. You're just almost 100 years too late, but that's all right. Now, here was Kirby on the three-peat and whether he's concerned about it when it comes to his football team.
We have not addressed that with them. We've certainly looked at some three-peat scenarios of teams like the Bulls and different sports teams that they might actually know about. No offense to the Minnesota 1935 team, but I don't know if it's going to resonate with my audience. So I don't care about the three-peat, the two-peat, or the one-peat. I care about complacency.
Right. I can understand that. And there's a reason why Georgia is not going to repeat and three-peat as national champions.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason why is because no one's done it since the 1930s. If Saban couldn't do it, if Bear Bryant couldn't do it, if great Notre Dame teams in Nebraska and Miami and these teams we've talked about for years and years, they couldn't do it. Why do we think now that Georgia's going to be able to do it? Something is going to happen. It's going to get them tripped up. You okay there? Your
Somebody reset my microphone in a crazy way. But this nothing's ever laid out like this for Georgia. This is going to be the easiest of their 3 years to get to the Final Four. Their schedule's a joke, and they're stacked. I mean, and I hate to say it, I know they lost Stetson Bennett, but they might have upgraded at quarterback with Carson Beck. I mean, he's obviously bigger, better arm. I feel like this is going to be an easier year than last year, and last year was pretty easy. Last year, they were never even really – they were challenged by Ohio State. I think Ohio State, to me, is the only real threat out there. I don't know what's going to happen. Are you talking about tripping up in the Final Four? Do you think they don't make the Final Four? Because it seems so easy right now.
Listen, I think they're going to make the Final Four. I do not –
right.
Yes, their schedule, here's the non-conference. University of Tennessee, Martin, Ball State, UAB. It's not exactly murderer's row there. So, of course, they're also in the SEC East, which is obviously a little bit watered down compared to the SEC West. That would be nice there. There are good teams, but there might just be two top 20 teams that they face all year, and they're Georgia.
A bit watered down?
I'm just trying to be nice here.
A bit watered down with UAB?
No, I'm talking about the SEC East.
Okay. I thought you were talking about I think you said the out-of-schedule.
I'm trying to be kind to the Kentuckys and the Floridas and, Ole Miss and Tennessee. They have to play Tennessee. That's not nothing.
That's it. That's their whole – basically, they could just start game planning right now for that Tennessee game. That's their only threat on the schedule.
They almost lost to Mizzou last year, and that means at any time, if you lose focus at all, you could get tripped up. The other thing about Georgia, and listen, they're an all-time great team, and this feels dynastic, but it can't be the three-peat. When you send 25 players over the last 2 years to the NFL, at some point that does catch up with you. It's caught up to Nick Saban. It's caught up to other great programs.
I've heard some analysts who follow this really closely saying their defense is probably more stacked this year than it has been.
Well, if you're talking about the 16 players who played 200-plus snaps last year and 12 of those are returning, I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they have just All-Americans at every spot, and arguably they'll be better on offense. I think Carson Beck's going to blow up. Okay. I already nabbed him as a Heisman pick.
So here's the thing about Carson Beck, who, by the way, has not officially been named the starter. So you still have Brock Vandagriff out there, who is probably challenging for this. And then you also have Gunnar Stockton as well. But here's my thing about Carson Beck, and he could end up being a great quarterback. I don't know. He's looked good when he's gotten on the field. But if you just went by, like, the rankings or his projection, he should have outplayed Stetson Bennett. Like, that's the whole interesting thing about the Stetson Bennett story. That's what makes this so cool, is that Stetson Bennett defied the odds to become a two-time national champion and all the things he went through. If Carson Beck was like the second coming, he would have beaten out Stetson Bennett last year, wouldn't he?
Well, no, I mean, you can't bench Stetson Bennett after winning the title.
I think that most people in Georgia felt like it was wait for Stetson Bennett just to be running a, Mercedes dealership somewhere in Atlanta. And that's his ceiling.
First of all, everyone thought
not a second national title.
Everyone thought he was going to leave. But then when he didn't, you can't, there was no thought really of not playing Stetson Bennett once he came back, right?
Well, Okay, but that's what I'm talking about, the projections on if you want to just go by how many stars they were coming out of high school or whatever. Of course, Carson Beck would look like the much better quarterback. And yet last year and for the last 2 years, it's been Bennett.
Yeah, I'm just telling you right now, I would expect big things out of Carson Beck. I think he's going to be great. And also, too, listen, look at that schedule. He'll be, if he can play past halftime and accumulate any stats, he's going to totally dominate there. I think he should be really good. The thing about it is it doesn't matter at Georgia. Stetson Bennett didn't even do that much until the Final Four. Their defense is just going to destroy people, and whoever's a quarterback will have basically 10 games to warm up for the Final Four. Then you hope that Ohio State and Michigan have some injuries, and then they're fine. They're the biggest favorite I can remember. Last year they were third in odds. This year they're at plus 250, where Alabama's second at plus 600. Like no one's even considering a close second here. It's just so easy for them. So I'm not saying they were definitely going to win it. I'm not going to do some crazy bet Georgia versus the field, but this is definitely an easiest path that they've faced out of their 3 years.
Well, but then you still have the mounting pressure. You do have a lot of guys who did exit the program. You have a new offensive coordinator this year. I mean, you just have a lot of things that have changed. You got some really key guys who are coming off of injuries. I'm not saying they aren't a stacked team. Obviously, they are, but not going to three-peat. Also,
the other thing is, I think a lot of the other big programs, Alabama, new quarterback, we don't even know who it is yet.
Yeah.
Tennessee lost Hendon Hooker. I mean, I think they'll be fine in that regard. LSU's probably not, as Brian Kelly said, they're probably not there. So I think your competition's down in the SEC this year because of turnover. And then Ohio State and Michigan are sitting there, but Michigan never wins in the Final Four. And then there's Ohio State has a new quarterback too. So I think, and there's USC there too. But I mean, does USC scare Georgia? Probably not. So I think that basically it's sort of like the Red Sea is parted to get the first three-peat since my Minnesota Gophers in 1938.
Right. Way back in the late 30s. Yeah.
I mean, I totally understand what you're saying. Things always happen. You're right. They almost did lose to Missouri, sort of almost lost to Missouri. Anything could happen, but I think they get in the Final Four with one loss anyway, which makes no sense because they don't have anyone on their schedule. But once they're in the Final Four, they have obviously as good a chance as anyone, if not better.
Well, that would be the thing. Because this schedule is the weakest of every SEC team's schedule, if you do lose, that's devastating.
Devastating, but Ohio State, who did Ohio State beat last year? They beat Notre Dame, and they got in with one loss, and they were fine. I think the committee does not have the discipline to keep a one-loss Georgia out of there. I mean, I guess it depends who they lose to, but can't you see the committee just picking Georgia?
Yes, but at the same time, I'm not talking about just getting to the Final Four. We're talking about getting a three-peat here.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
once you get in, then that's also going to be your stiffest competition, of course. 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Then the other part is, do you even want a three-peat? We'll take the Georgia fans out of this. Of course you guys do. It's been awesome. It's been incredible days, not without its challenges, obviously, and some negative headlines as well for Georgia. But as far as football success, you guys are sitting on easy street right now. But for the rest of college football fans, is that what you want? A third Georgia national champion? Is that good for the sport?
I personally think dynasties are good for the sport because there's a lot of parity in the sense that everyone has a chance. But imagine a three-peat and how big a deal Georgia would become. I mean, it's funny. Like, they're the two-time defending champion, and I think they're still get less attention than Alabama. Alabama still feels like the sizzle team, and maybe USC. Yeah, imagine it's like when Michael Jordan won 3 in a row. To me, that made the whole NBA more exciting. So I get parity. It's really fun. But wouldn't it be awesome to have this dynasty that everyone can go for?
Well, I think the dynasty can be fun. I already think they have a huge target on their back, but it's more fun when you do actually have like a rival that pushes you. Yeah. And if it's, and are we going to get a team that's actually going to push them?
I'm sure. I mean, listen.
Tennessee, maybe.
TCU 62-7 is not going to be every game. Ohio State absolutely should have beaten them last year. So if they do win a three-peat, it's going to be a narrow three-peat. It's not going to be.
Now we're doing degrees of the three-peat.
I'm just saying, like, it's not going to be so outrageous that people are going to be like, well, I don't like college football anymore because it's Georgia and everybody else. I think they're going to have to fight really hard. So would you prefer just total parity, a new champion every year, like kind of the NBA is now?
I mean, listen, I'm not going to take away anything that Georgia did. The back-to-back, it was amazing. They basically sent half their team to your Philadelphia Eagles, so we'll see what goes on with that. Plenty of guys in the NFL now to keep rooting for. definitely Georgia deserves it. Three-peat, I don't see it happening. Whether it's good for the sport or not, probably neutral. It probably doesn't make a huge difference, but I think people are going to start, it's just when you get such a juggernaut like that, I don't know, sometimes it can turn people off.
My bigger problem is imbalanced scheduling in college football.
Well, that's going to change.
I think the 12 team will help that. And that's why I really wouldn't mind a mega conference around the SEC. I think it is ridiculous that Georgia has a schedule. I understand what happened with Oklahoma and Texas, and they had to change their schedule because Oklahoma is joining the SEC. But still, it's just stupid. I thought last year Alabama was one of the top 4 teams in the country. They lost on the road at LSU, and they lost on the road at Tennessee, and they had the defending Heisman champion. College football is completely imbalanced on schedule. Georgia has a break now. Do you think? Here's the question: will the conferences or the divisions ever even up in the SEC? I think it's all interesting. I think it's all really good for the sport.